Chapter 1. The Reckoning. The club smelled like expensive cologne and poor decisions. Elena Carter balanced 3 martinis on her tray, weaving through the press of bodies in the VIP section of Zenith, Manhattan's newest playground for people who measured their worth in zeros. The bass line thrummed through the floor, up her legs into her exhausted spine. She'd been on her feet for 6 hours. Her shift ended at 2. It was barely midnight. "Miss!" A man in a suit that cost more than her rent snapped his fingers at her. She delivered the drinks, smiled with her mouth but not her eyes, and collected her tip without counting it. Muscle memory, survival mode, the same pattern she'd been running for 3 weeks straight, ever since the phone call that shattered her world into before and after. "Your father's had a heart attack. I'm so sorry." Thomas Carter, gambler, dreamer, eternal optimist, had died owing money to men who didn't understand the word forgiveness. Elena had found the letters 2 days after the funeral, stuffed in a kitchen drawer beneath unpaid utility bills. Threatening letters, promises of consequences, names she didn't recognize attached to debts she couldn't fathom. She'd thought about running, taking Noah, her 15-year-old brother, still shell-shocked and silent with grief, and disappearing into Middle America somewhere. But you couldn't run from numbers. The math followed you everywhere. The club manager, Victor, had been oddly sympathetic when she'd asked for extra shifts. "Work as much as you want," he'd said, his accent thick as winter. "We take care of our people here." She hadn't understood what he meant. Not until tonight. Elena was clearing empties from table 7 when the music cut out. Not gradually, not a fade or transition, just silence. 300 people stopped mid-conversation. The DJ stood frozen at his booth, hands hovering over equipment that had simply stopped working. Even the bartenders paused, bottles suspended mid-pour. Elena's stomach dropped. The crowd parted like a sea. 4 men walked through Zenith's entrance, moving with the fluid precision of apex predators. They wore dark suits, perfectly tailored, and their eyes swept the room with clinical assessment. Bodyguards, enforcers, the kind of men who solved problems with violence and slept soundly after. But it was the 5th man who made the air change. He was tall, 6'2", maybe 6'3", with the kind of face that belonged on Byzantine icons. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, and eyes the color of steel in winter. His hair was dark, swept back from his forehead, touched with premature silver at the temples. He couldn't have been older than 35, but he moved like a man who'd seen centuries. He wore a black suit, no tie, white shirt open at the collar. Simple, devastating. And every single person in Zenith knew exactly who he was: Dmitry Sokolov, the Vor, the Wolf of Brighton Beach, head of the Severny Codex, the Northern Code, the Russian crime syndicate that controlled everything from the docks to the Diamond District. His grandfather, Yevgeny Sokolov, had built an empire from nothing after arriving in America 53 years ago with a suitcase and a philosophy. Debt is sacred, mercy is weakness, and fear is stability. Dmitry had inherited that empire and refined it into something sharper, more efficient, more terrifying. He never raised his voice, because he never needed to. Victor appeared at Elena's elbow, his face pale. "Go to the back," he whispered urgently. "Now!" But it was too late. Dmitry Sokolov's gaze swept across the frozen club and landed on her like a sniper's crosshair. He walked forward, his men fanned out, taking positions at exits and blind spots with military precision. One of them, a massive figure with a shaved head and a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, murmured something into his sleeve. Communications, coordination. Dmitry reached the VIP section and sat down at table 12, Elena's section. Her hands started to shake. She gripped the tray harder, willing herself steady. Victor had disappeared. The other waitresses had melted into the shadows. The bartenders suddenly found inventory to count in the back room. She was alone. Elena forced her feet to move. One step, then another. She approached the table like she was walking to her own execution, which maybe she was. Up close, Dmitry Sokolov was even more unsettling. His face gave away nothing, no anger, no pleasure, no emotion at all. Just that cold, assessing stare that seemed to catalog every weakness, every fear, every secret. "Vodka," he said. His voice was quiet, barely above a conversational tone, but it carried like a bell. "Beluga, neat. Russian, of course, the best. Right away, Elena managed. Her voice only shook a little. She turned to go. Elena Carter. She froze. He knew her name. Of course he knew her name. She turned back slowly. Yes? Dmitri leaned back in his seat, one arm draped across the leather booth. Casual, relaxed, like they were old friends catching up. Sit. It wasn't a request. Elena's mind raced. Run, scream, fight, do something. But her body knew better than her brain. She'd heard the stories, the whispers. What happened to people who disrespected the vor? She sat. Your father, Dmitri said, was Thomas Carter, correct? Her throat closed. She nodded. He owed my organization $347,000. Gambling debts accumulated over 18 months. We were patient. We gave extensions. We offered payment plans. His eyes never left her face. He died before fulfilling his obligation. I know. The words came out as a whisper. I found the letters. Then you understand the situation. I don't have that kind of money. I'm a college student. I work here part-time. I can barely make rent. I'm not interested in your financial limitations. He said it without heat, without cruelty, just fact. Debt doesn't die with the debtor. It transfers. To family, to estate, to blood. Elena's chest constricted. My brother, Noah Carter, 15 years old, attends Midtown High School. Takes the M train home every day at 3:15. Dmitri recited the information like he was reading a grocery list. He's young, trainable. The Severny Codex can always use fresh recruits. The world tilted. No. The word came out sharp, feral. No, he's a kid. He has nothing to do with this. He has everything to do with this. He's Thomas Carter's son. The debt is his as much as yours. He's 15. I was 14 when I killed my first man. Dmitri said it without pride or shame. Simple history. Your brother will adapt, or he won't. Either way, the debt will be paid. Elena stared at him. At this man who could casually discuss destroying a child's life like he was negotiating a business contract. Something broke open inside her chest, not fear, but rage, pure, incandescent fury. You can't just take him. I can. Dmitri tilted his head slightly. Your father was given 90 days to make arrangements. He used 63 of them. After his death, you were granted an additional 30 days as a courtesy. That grace period ended yesterday. Yesterday. She'd been so focused on surviving, on keeping Noah fed, keeping the lights on, keeping herself from drowning, that she'd lost track of the calendar. I need more time. No. Please. Begging is undignified, Miss Carter, and pointless. He gestured to one of his men, the one with the scar. Alexei, call the car. We'll collect the boy tonight. Wait! Elena lunged forward, her hand catching Dmitri's wrist. The movement was instinctive, desperate, stupid. Alexei moved like lightning, his weapon drawn and pointed at Elena's head before she could blink. The other bodyguards shifted, suddenly alert, hands inside their jackets. But Dmitri raised one finger. Everyone froze. He looked down at Elena's hand on his wrist, then slowly up to her face. You're either very brave or very foolish. I'm desperate. She didn't let go. Couldn't let go. Please, not Noah, he's all I have left. Then you should have thought about that before your father gambled away his family's future. I'll pay it. The words tumbled out, frantic and unplanned. The debt, all of it. I'll find a way. With your waitress salary? Something that might have been amusement flickered in those cold eyes. You'll be 70 before you clear that balance. Then I'll work for you. Directly, whatever you need. I'll do it. She was talking faster now, the words spilling out like water through a broken dam. I'm smart. I'm reliable. I don't scare easy. You're terrified right now. Of course I am. You're threatening my brother. She squeezed his wrist harder, her nails digging in. But I'm still here, still talking. That has to count for something. Dmitri studied her with those unnervingly pale eyes. The club remained silent, 300 people holding their breath, waiting to see if this stupid girl would die for her boldness. Finally, he spoke. What exactly are you proposing? Let Noah go. Send him out of the city, somewhere safe. I'll take his place. The debt becomes mine alone. I'll work it off however you want. She swallowed hard. I belong to you until it's paid. Belong to me. Yes. You understand what that means? You're offering yourself as collateral, as property. The word made her flinch, but she didn't look away. I understand. Alexei said something in rapid Russian. It sounded like a warning. Dmitri responded in the same language, his tone sharp and final. The big man holstered his weapon but didn't look happy about it. Stand up, Dmitri ordered. Elena released his wrist and stood, her legs shaking but holding. Dmitri rose as well, and she was reminded again how tall he was, how he seemed to fill space without trying. He circled her slowly, assessing, the way someone might evaluate a horse at auction. You're 21, he said. No criminal record, average grades, no remarkable skills. You're offering me an uneducated waitress in exchange for a young man I could train into a useful asset. Each word was a blade. Elena stood there and took it. But, Dmitri continued, stopping in front of her, you walked up to me, put your hands on me, demanded negotiation while Alexei had a gun to your head. That suggests either stupidity or courage. He paused. I don't think you're stupid. Hope flickered, dangerous and painful. If I agree to this, he said slowly, there are conditions, non-negotiable. Anything. Your brother leaves New York tonight. He goes to wherever we send him, and he doesn't come back until I say so. You don't contact him. You don't tell him where you are. As far as he knows, you're working abroad. It felt like a knife between her ribs, but she nodded. Okay, you move into one of our properties. You live where I tell you, when I tell you. You have no privacy, no freedom, no autonomy. When I give you an order, you follow it without question or hesitation. I understand. If you try to run, I will find you, and then I will take your brother anyway, and you'll have sacrificed yourself for nothing. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. Do you believe me? She looked into those winter eyes and saw nothing but absolute certainty. Yes. Good. He stepped back. Then we have an agreement. Elena's knees nearly gave out. Relief and terror crashed through her in equal measure. Dmitri turned to Alexei. Arrange transport for the boy. There's a cousin in Portland. Send him there with enough money for 6 months. Make sure he's enrolled in school. Da. Vor. Alexei pulled out his phone. Another man, younger, with sharp features and calculating eyes, approached. What about the girl? She comes with us, Luca. Have Irina prepare the guest room at the Brighton house. The Brighton house. Elena had heard whispers about it. The fortress in Brighton Beach where the Severny Codex operated, where enemies disappeared and business was conducted in blood and Russian. When? She managed to ask. Dmitri looked at her like he'd forgotten she could speak. Now, say goodbye to your life, Miss Carter. It belongs to me now. He walked toward the exit, his men falling into formation around him. Elena stood frozen in the middle of Zenith, the silence finally breaking as the music crashed back to life. People started dancing again, drinking again, pretending they hadn't just witnessed a girl sell herself to the devil. Victor appeared at her side, his face sad. Go home. Pack light. They'll come for you within the hour. Victor, I'm sorry, Devochka. I tried to warn you, but some debts. He shook his head. They can't be outrun. Elena's phone buzzed. A text from Noah. Staying at Jake's tonight. Back tomorrow. She stared at the message, knowing it would be the last normal thing in her old life. By tomorrow, Noah would be on a plane to Portland thinking his sister had abandoned him, and she would be in Brighton Beach, belonging to Dmitri Sokolov, the wolf. Chapter 2. The House. The black SUV idled outside Elena's apartment building at 3:47 a.m. She'd packed one suitcase, clothes, toiletries, the photograph of her parents on their wedding day. Everything else she left behind, including the textbooks for classes she'd never attend and the lease agreement she'd never fulfill. Alexei sat in the driver's seat, silent and mountainous. Another man, the one Dmitri had called Luca, waited by the passenger door, smoking a cigarette with the efficient focus of someone who'd perfected the art of waiting. Elena locked her apartment door for the last time. The click of the deadbolt felt like a coffin closing. Ready? Luca asked. He was younger than Alexei, maybe 30, with dark hair and the kind of pretty boy features that probably made him underestimated right up until he killed you. Does it matter? His mouth twitched. Not really, but I appreciate honesty. The drive to Brighton Beach took 40 minutes through empty streets. Manhattan gave way to Brooklyn, glass towers replaced by brownstones and Soviet-style apartment blocks. The neighborhood transformed, Cyrillic letters appearing on storefronts, the architecture turning harsh and utilitarian. They pulled up to a townhouse on a quiet street 2 blocks from the water. It looked unremarkable. 3 stories of weathered brick, black iron gate, windows dark. But Elena noticed the cameras hidden in the eaves, the reinforced door, the way the neighboring houses seemed just a little too quiet. Welcome home, Luca said without irony. The gate buzzed open. Alexei parked in a small courtyard behind the building, where 2 more vehicles sat like sleeping predators. Security measures, escape routes, everything calculated. A woman waited at the back entrance. She was perhaps 50, built like a tank, with steel gray hair pulled into a severe bun and eyes that missed nothing. She wore all black, practical pants, turtleneck, boots that looked like they could kick through a door. This is Irina, Luca said. She runs the house. You do what she says when she says it. Understand? Yes. Irina looked Elena up and down with all the warmth of a prison warden processing an inmate. Come. The interior of the townhouse contradicted its modest exterior. Everything was expensive, hardwood floors that probably cost more per square foot than Elena's entire apartment, furniture that looked antique and European, artwork that might have been real. It was beautiful in a cold way, like a museum no one actually lived in. Rules, Irina said, her accent thicker than Dimitri's. You wake at 6, breakfast is at 7, you eat what is prepared, no special requests, you clean your room, you do not enter rooms with closed doors, you do not use phones without permission, you speak to no one outside this house, you go nowhere without escort. She paused at the base of a staircase. And you never, never go to the 3rd floor. That is Mr. Sokolov's private residence. Elena nodded, trying to memorize everything. Your room is 2nd floor, end of hall. Bathroom is shared with Katya. She does laundry and cooking. She doesn't speak English, so don't bother trying. Irina started climbing. Mr. Sokolov will decide your duties tomorrow. Tonight, you sleep. The room was small but clean. Single bed, dresser, window that looked out over the courtyard. Bars on the window, Elena noticed. Subtle but functional. Irina set her suitcase on the bed. Clothes in the closet by morning. Bathroom is across the hall. Lights out in 10 minutes. Can I? Elena started. No. Irina left, closing the door behind her. Elena sat on the bed, the mattress firmer than she was used to, and tried to process what had just happened. 12 hours ago, she'd been worried about her econ midterm. Now, she was locked in a Russian mob house, her brother on his way to Oregon, her life effectively over. She didn't cry. She'd learned at the funeral that tears were a luxury she couldn't afford. They accomplished nothing, changed nothing, and showing weakness in this place seemed like a fatal mistake. Instead, she unpacked with mechanical precision, hanging her pathetic wardrobe in the closet, lining up her shoes, placing her parents' photograph on the dresser where she could see it. Her father stared back at her, grinning that reckless grin that had gotten them into this mess. I hope it was worth it, she whispered to the photo. Whatever you were chasing, I hope it was worth Noah's childhood and my life. But Thomas Carter offered no answers. The dead never did. The morning came like a punishment. Elena woke to pounding on her door at exactly 5:55 a.m., Irina's voice barking something in Russian that probably translated to, get up. She dressed quickly, jeans, sweater, the kind of forgettable clothes that didn't draw attention. The bathroom was vacant, steam still lingering from whoever had showered before her. She washed her face, braided her hair, and headed downstairs. The kitchen was larger than expected, commercial-grade appliances gleaming under recessed lighting. A woman worked at the stove, Katya presumably, small and round with quick hands and a scarf covering her hair. She glanced at Elena, nodded once, and returned to her cooking. Irina sat at a large table reading a Russian newspaper. She gestured to a seat without looking up. Sit. Eat. Don't waste food. Breakfast was black bread, butter, soft-boiled eggs, sliced cucumbers and tomatoes, and tea so strong it could strip paint. Elena forced herself to eat even though her stomach churned. Prison rules applied here. Take care of your body because your mind would break soon enough. Luca appeared halfway through the meal, looking alert despite the early hour. Vor wants to see her. Irina folded her newspaper with crisp precision. She hasn't finished eating? Now, Irina. The older woman's jaw tightened, but she stood. Come, girl. They climbed to the third floor, the forbidden floor, where the architecture shifted, more personal, less showroom. They stopped at a heavy wooden door, and Irina knocked twice. Enter, came Dmitri's voice. It was an office. Books lined 2 walls, floor to ceiling. Russian literature, history, philosophy mixed with business texts and legal volumes. A massive desk dominated the space, dark wood polished to a mirror shine. Weapons hung on the wall behind it, antique pistols, a Cossack saber, and something that looked like a World War II sniper rifle. Trophies or warnings? Elena couldn't tell. Dmitri sat behind the desk in a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, reading something on a laptop. He didn't look up. Wait, he said. So, they waited. It was a power play, obvious and effective. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Irina stood like a statue. Elena tried to do the same, but her back started to ache, her feet to hurt. Finally, Dmitri closed the laptop and looked at her. In daylight, filtered through the office windows, he was even more striking. Perfect bone structure, sharp enough to draw blood, but it was his eyes that trapped you. Pale gray, almost silver, unnervingly direct. You slept well? He asked. It seemed like a trick question. Yes. No nightmares? No second thoughts? Would it matter if I had? His eyebrow lifted fractionally. No, but I'm curious about your psychology. You've entered a world where most people would be catatonic with fear, yet you're standing here answering my questions with something that almost resembles backbone. I'm scared, Elena admitted, but I made a choice. Falling apart doesn't help Noah. Noah is fine. He landed in Portland 3 hours ago. My cousin Anya met him at the airport. She owns a restaurant, has 2 sons his age. He'll attend school, work part-time, live normally. Dmitri leaned back in his chair. If you behave. The unspoken threat hung in the air. Your brother's safety depends on your obedience. What do you want me to do? Elena asked. Today, learn the house. Irina will show you how things operate. Tomorrow you start working. Doing what? Whatever I tell you to. He opened a drawer and removed a phone. Cheap, basic, probably prepaid. This is yours. It has 3 numbers programmed. Irina, Alexei, and me. You don't call anyone else. You don't install apps. You don't access the internet. If you're stupid enough to try contacting your brother, I'll know within minutes. He slid the phone across the desk. Elena picked it up, the plastic cold against her palm. Questions? Dmitri asked. 1,000 questions. Why me? What are you planning? When will this end? Will I survive? But, she asked the only one that mattered. Can I know that Noah is actually okay? Not just your word, proof. Dmitri studied her for a long moment. Then he picked up his own phone, tapped the screen, and turned it to face her. A video played. Noah, standing in what looked like a nice kitchen, awkward and teenage gangly in a new hoodie. A woman's voice off camera, accented but warm, asked him how he liked his room. Noah shrugged, mumbled something about it being cool, managed a small smile. He looked okay, shell-shocked, confused, but physically fine. The video ended. Elena's throat tightened. Thank you. I'm not your friend, Miss Carter. I don't do favors, but I keep my word. Your brother is safe because you're here. Remember that when things get difficult. How difficult are we talking? That depends entirely on you. He gestured to Irina. Show her everything. I want her functional by week's end. Dismissed. The next 3 days blurred together in a haze of rules, routines, and restrictions. Irina ran the house like a military operation, and Elena was the newest recruit. She learned the morning ritual. Wake at 6, shower, dress, breakfast at 7 precisely. She learned which rooms she could enter, kitchen, dining room, her bedroom, the bathroom, and which were forbidden. Dmitri's office, the basement. several rooms on the second floor that remained locked. She learned the schedule: meals at exact times, quiet hours from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., deliveries only through the back entrance. She met the other inhabitants of the house: Katya, the cook, who communicated through nods and gestures and fed everyone like they were children she was determined to fatten up; Boris, an older man with white hair and a pronounced limp, who handled maintenance and security systems. He spoke English with a British accent, educated somewhere, exiled here, and treated Elena with polite indifference. Yuri, one of the enforcers, built like a brick wall and about as conversational. He came and went at odd hours, always armed, usually bloody. And Galina, gala to everyone, a woman in her mid-20s who dressed like she was attending Fashion Week and moved through the house like she owned it. She worked as Dmitri's assistant, handling scheduling and communications. She took one look at Elena and laughed. "You're the debt girl? Bоже mой, you're a baby." "I'm 21, Elena said defensively. "Like I said, baby." Gala lit a cigarette despite Irina's glare. "Let me give you advice, Malishka. Don't fall in love with him. Half the women in this organization already have, and he doesn't notice any of them. He's married to the business. You're just another asset." "I'm not interested in him romantically." "Sure, that's what they all say. Then they see him at work and—" She made an explosion gesture with her hands. "Poof! Doomed!" Elena didn't dignify that with a response. On the fourth day, Dmitri summoned her again. This time, the office wasn't empty. 3 men sat in chairs facing the desk, all older, all radiating authority. They stopped talking when Elena entered, their eyes tracking her with predatory interest. "Gentlemen," Dmitri said smoothly, "this is Elena Carter. She'll be assisting me going forward. Elena, these are associates. You don't need to know their names." One of the men, heavy-set, with a gold watch that probably cost 6 figures, grunted. "This is your solution? A girl?" "This is my decision," Dmitri corrected, his voice dropping several degrees in temperature. "Unless you're questioning my judgment?" The man backed down immediately. "No, Vor, of course not." "Good. Then we're done here." Dmitri stood, signaling the end of the meeting. The 3 men filed out, but not before each one gave Elena a look that made her skin crawl. Assessment, speculation, threat. When they were gone, Dmitri walked to the window, hands in his pockets, staring down at the street below. "Do you know what the Severny Codex actually does, Miss Carter?" Elena chose her words carefully. "Crime." Disappointingly vague. "We manage several import-export businesses. We run financial services for people who can't use traditional banks. We provide security and logistics consulting. We mediate disputes. And yes," he glanced back at her, "occasionally we engage in activities that fall outside legal boundaries, but we're not savages. We have structure, rules, honor." "Honor," Elena repeated, unable to keep the skepticism from her voice. "You doubt this? I think honor is a convenient word people use to justify doing terrible things to each other." Dmitri turned fully, his expression unreadable. "Interesting. Most people in your position would agree with everything I said. You told me not to lie. I told you begging was undignified. I never said anything about lying." But something that might have been approval flickered across his face. "Come here." Elena approached the window. From 3 stories up, she could see the street, the neighboring buildings, a slice of gray sky. Ordinary Brooklyn. Except it wasn't, because this was the heart of Russian power in New York. "You see that bodega on the corner?" Dmitri pointed. "Mikhail owns it. Came here from Vladivostok 20 years ago with nothing. We gave him a loan to start his business. He pays us monthly, not extortion, not protection money, but interest on an investment. His son is going to NYU now, pre-med." He shifted his finger to a different building. "That apartment complex, Mrs. Orlova lives there. Her husband died in a construction accident. Company refused to pay out because he was undocumented. We made them pay extra." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you think we're monsters. And maybe we are. But we're also the only thing standing between our people and a city that would chew them up and spit them out." He looked at her directly. "Your father came to us because no legitimate bank would touch him. We gave him money when no one else would. He knew the terms. He agreed to them. And when he couldn't pay, you were going to take a 15-year-old boy." "Yes." No apology, no justification, just fact. I want you to understand something, Dmitri continued. In this world, debt is sacred, more sacred than family, more sacred than life, because without it, we have no power, no structure, just chaos. Your father borrowed our sacred promise. When he died, that promise transferred to you and your brother. I would have been well within my rights to collect from both of you. But you didn't. No, because you offered me something more valuable than your brother's labor. He moved closer, invading her space in a way that made her pulse race. You offered me your loyalty, your servitude, your complete obedience. That's worth more than a traumatized teenager who'd have to be broken before he became useful. Elena forced herself not to step back. So I'm useful? That remains to be seen. Today we find out. Chapter 3: The Education. Dmitri led her downstairs to a room she'd never been allowed to enter. It looked like a control center. Computers, monitors displaying security feeds from what must have been dozens of locations. Filing cabinets, a large table covered in documents. Gala sat at one of the computers, typing rapidly. She looked up when they entered, her perfectly shaped eyebrows rising. We're bringing her into the operations room? Bold choice, boss. She needs to understand the business. Can't be useful if she's ignorant. He gestured Elena toward the table. Pay attention. I don't repeat myself. For the next 4 hours, Dmitri gave Elena a crash course in how the Severny Codex actually functioned. It wasn't what she expected. Yes, there was the criminal element, money laundering, illegal gambling operations, smuggling, but there was also legitimate business, real estate holdings, import companies, investment portfolios. The organization operated like a corporation with departments, hierarchies, protocols. Most people think the Mafia is just thugs and violence, Dmitri explained, spreading documents across the table. That's street-level thinking. At this level, we're businessmen who occasionally use violence as a tool, but it's not the primary tool. He showed her shipping manifests, construction contracts, financial statements, taught her how to read between the lines, to spot inconsistencies, to understand the flow of money through various fronts and shells. This is a shipping container from Vladivostok, he said, tapping one manifest. On paper, it's agricultural equipment. In reality, 20% of the space contains cigarettes we'll sell tax-free to distributors in New Jersey. We clear $200,000 profit on this one container. That's more than my father's debt. Your father's debt was pocket change. I came to collect personally because he disrespected the agreement. He stopped communicating, avoided our people, made it a matter of pride. Dmitri's eyes hardened. I can forgive debt. I cannot forgive disrespect. Gala snorted from her computer. He's very big on respect. It's almost cute. Gala, Dmitri said without looking at her. When was the last time you balanced the Nevada accounts? I'll do it now, boss. But she was smiling. By early afternoon, Elena's head swam with information. Routes, contacts, code words, the complex web of relationships that kept the organization functional. It was overwhelming and terrifying, and she hated to admit, fascinating. Why are you showing me all this? She finally asked. Dmitri had been reading something on his laptop. He closed it. Because I need someone I can trust to handle details. Alexei is excellent muscle but terrible with paperwork. Luca is smart but too ambitious. Gala is competent but spread thin. You, however, are educated, desperate, and have everything to lose. That makes you predictable, controllable, useful. It should have been insulting. Instead, it felt oddly honest. What would you have me do? Start small. Gala will train you on the filing system. Everything is coded, cross-referenced, backed up. You'll learn to input data, track shipments, monitor accounts. Boring work, critical work. And if I make a mistake, then people die, businesses fail, and I become very disappointed in my investment. He said it casually. So, don't make mistakes. The training was brutal. Gala had zero patience for errors and a teaching style that consisted mostly of pointing at things and saying, figure it out. But she was also thorough, and by the end of the first week, Elena had a basic grasp of the system. Everything was in code. Money was water, drugs were medicine, weapons were tools, people were packages. Even the computers used encryption that made her university's IT security look like a child's toy. "You're picking this up faster than I expected," Gala admitted one evening, lighting one of her endless cigarettes. "Most people need a month to learn what you did in a week." "I'm motivated," Elena said dryly. "Nothing like the threat of death to improve your study habits. Speaking of death, you should know that Ilya Maximov doesn't like you." "Who?" "Fat guy with the gold watch. Came to the meeting your first day. He's one of the Bratva captains. Controls the waste management contracts in Queens. Old school. Thinks women are for cooking and fucking, not business." Gala exhaled smoke toward the ceiling. "He's been complaining to anyone who'll listen that Dmitri is getting soft, bringing in American girls, diluting the bloodline, blah, blah, blah." Elena's stomach tightened. "Is that a problem?" "For him, eventually. Dmitri doesn't tolerate dissent for long." Gala studied her through the smoke. "For you? Maybe. Ilya's the type who'd hurt you just to make a point to the vor, so stay close to the house. Don't go anywhere without Alexei or Luka. And if you see Ilya coming, you walk the other way." It was advice Elena tucked away, another survival rule in a growing list. 2 weeks into her new life, Dmitri changed the routine. "You're coming with me today," he announced at breakfast. Elena looked up from her tea. "Where?" "Meetings. You'll take notes, observe, learn." He was dressed more formally than usual, full suit, dark blue, tailored perfectly to his frame. "Dress appropriately. We leave in 30 minutes." She had exactly one dress suitable for business, black, modest, bought for a college internship she'd never finished. She paired it with her only decent shoes and felt absurdly underdressed compared to Dmitri's effortless elegance. The car was waiting, Alexei behind the wheel, Luka in the passenger seat. Dmitri held the back door open for Elena, a gesture of courtesy that seemed at odds with him owning her. "Ground rules," he said as they pulled into traffic. "You don't speak unless spoken to. You don't offer opinions. You write down everything important. If something goes wrong, you do exactly what Alexei tells you. Understood?" "Yes." "Good, because the people we're meeting today are significantly less civilized than me." That was a terrifying thought. The first stop was a restaurant in Little Italy, closed to the public, hosting a meeting with what Dmitri called our Italian colleagues. 3 men in expensive suits, gold everywhere, speaking in rapid-fire Italian and English. They were negotiating territory, specifically who controlled certain gambling operations in the Bronx. Elena sat in the corner with a notebook, writing down names, numbers, terms. The conversation was tense, threatening to boil over several times, but Dmitri remained calm, his voice never rising, his posture relaxed. He was frightening in his composure. While the Italians postured and threatened, Dmitri simply stated facts. Numbers, consequences, reality. By the end of the meeting, they'd reached an agreement. The Italians would maintain street-level operations. The Severny Codex would handle supply and distribution. Everyone made money. No one died. As they left, one of the Italians, younger, handsome, too much cologne, looked at Elena like she was dessert. "She's new, Sokolov. Very pretty. You sharing?" The temperature dropped 20 degrees. Dmitri paused at the door. Didn't turn around, just stopped. "Alexei," he said quietly. Alexei moved with shocking speed for a man his size. One moment the Italian was smirking, the next he was against the wall. Alexei's forearm across his throat, his feet dangling 6 inches off the ground. "She's mine," Dmitri said, his voice soft and absolutely lethal. "You don't look at what's mine. You don't speak about what's mine. You don't think about what's mine. Are we clear, Antonio?" Antonio made a strangled sound that might have been agreement. "I asked you a question." "Clear!" Antonio choked out. "Crystal fucking clear!" Alexei released him. The young man collapsed, gasping, his face purple. Dmitri finally turned, looking at Antonio with the same expression someone might give a stain on their shoe. "Next time, I won't be so forgiving." They walked out. In the car, Elena's hands shook as she tried to write her notes. Dmitri noticed. "That was necessary," he said. "You almost killed him." "I demonstrated consequences. If I'd wanted him dead, he'd be dead." He looked at her directly. "You need to understand something, Elena. In this world, Perception is everything. If people think they can disrespect what belongs to me, whether that's territory, money, or you, then I lose power. I can't lose power. I'm not a thing you own. Yes, you are. That was our agreement. His voice was matter of fact, but that doesn't mean I'll allow you to be mistreated. There's a difference between servitude and slavery. You serve me, but I protect what's mine. It was the closest thing to kindness he'd offered, and it came wrapped in possession. Elena didn't know whether to be grateful or terrified. Probably both. The second meeting was in a warehouse in Red Hook. No, she corrected herself mentally. Dmitri had said Red Hook was off limits for operations. This was somewhere near the Gowanus Canal, the air thick with industrial smells and rot. 5 men waited inside, surrounded by crates and shipping containers. They looked like soldiers, young, hard, alert, Dmitri's men. "Gentlemen," Dmitri greeted them, "show me." They opened one of the crates. Inside, packed in foam, were handguns, dozens of them, Glocks, SIGs, something that looked military grade. "From our Bulgarian contact," one of the soldiers explained. Pavel, according to Dmitri's earlier introduction. Clean, untraceable, numbers filed off. Dmitri picked up one of the guns, checking the weight, the action, the sightline. Quality? Tested, perfect function. Price? 40% markup from source. We move them through the usual channels, pawn shops, private sales, some go south to Atlanta. Elena tried to write this down with hands that had started shaking again. She was watching actual gun trafficking, federal crimes, the kind of thing that put people in prison for decades. "Atlanta wants 50 pieces by next month," Dmitri said. "Can we deliver?" "Yes, Vor." "Then do it. And Pavel, double-check the Atlanta contact. We've been hearing rumors about DEA interest in that pipeline." "Already on it." The meeting lasted another 20 minutes, logistics and details, before Dmitri was satisfied. As they walked back to the car, Elena couldn't hold it in anymore. "Those guns will kill people," she said. Dmitri opened the car door for her. "Most likely." "And that doesn't bother you? Would it change anything, if it did?" He waited for her to get in, then slid in beside her. "People want weapons. If we don't provide them, someone else will. At least we have quality control. At least we keep them out of the hands of amateurs who'd start a war in the streets. That's a rationalization. It's reality." He tapped Alexei's headrest. "Drive." They rode in silence for several blocks. Elena stared out the window, trying to reconcile the man who'd carefully explained business operations to her with the man who trafficked guns and threatened death as casually as discussing the weather. "You're struggling?" Dmitri observed. "I'm watching people break laws that get normal people life sentences." "You're not normal people anymore, and the sooner you accept that, the easier this becomes." He shifted to face her. "Let me ask you something. When your father was gambling away your future, where was the law? Where was justice? When landlords tried to evict you after he died, when bill collectors called 20 times a day, when Noah came home crying because kids at school knew your family was broke, where was the system that's supposed to protect people?" Elena said nothing, because he was right. The system had failed them spectacularly. "We exist because the system is broken," Dmitri continued, "because people need things, money, security, opportunity, and they can't get them through legitimate means. Your father came to us because society had already abandoned him. We didn't create the problem, we just profit from it. That's still just rationalization." "Perhaps, but it's rationalization built on truth." He looked back out the window. "You can hate what we do, Elena. You can hate me. But you can't deny that we're filling a void, and in filling it, we create our own society, our own rules, our own justice." "Justice," Elena repeated. "You keep using that word, because it matters, more than you think." He was quiet for a moment. "My grandfather came to America with nothing. He worked in factories, lived in squalor, watched his people be exploited by everyone, their employers, the police, other criminals, so he built something different. A structure where our people were protected, where we had power, where debts were honored and contracts were sacred because nothing else was." It was the most personal thing he'd ever shared. Elena studied his profile. The sharp lines, the hard set of his jaw, the way he held himself like a man carrying the weight of history. "How old were you when you took over?" she asked. 23. My father was killed in a territorial dispute. Very stupid, very avoidable. I had to prove myself quickly or the organization would have fractured. He glanced at her. I killed 7 men in 3 weeks, sent their heads to their families as warnings. By the end of the month, no one questioned my authority. He said it without pride or shame, just history. Does it get easier? Elena asked quietly. The violence? No. You just get better at living with it. By the time they returned to the Brighton house, Elena's notebook was full and her mind was overwhelmed. She'd witnessed criminal conspiracy, weapons trafficking, and the casual brutality of Dimitri's world. She'd also seen the structure, the discipline, the strange code of honor that governed everything. It was terrifying and fascinating in equal measure. Dimitri dismissed her at the door. Good work today. Write up your notes and give them to Gala for filing. Then rest. Tomorrow will be more of the same. Elena climbed the stairs to her room, exhausted in her bones. She found Katya had left dinner on her dresser. Soup, bread, tea. She ate mechanically, barely tasting it. Her phone buzzed, the burner phone, the one with 3 numbers. A text from Dimitri. You handled yourself well, sleep. She stared at the message, something uncomfortable twisting in her chest. It was approval, recognition, from a man who trafficked weapons and threatened death before lunch. She shouldn't care what he thought, but a small, traitorous part of her was pleased anyway. Chapter 4. Breaking in the routine became familiar with disturbing speed. Elena woke at 6, attended breakfast at 7, and spent her days buried in the organization's operations. She learned the rhythm of the illegal economy, when shipments arrived, how money moved, where bodies were buried, sometimes literally. Gala continued her education with ruthless efficiency. This is a ledger for the construction front in Queens. See this discrepancy? That's Ilya's crew skimming. They think they're clever. They're not. Should we tell Dimitri? He already knows. He's letting it happen for now because Ilya still has value. But he's keeping score. One day, the bill comes due. Gala lit a cigarette, looking at Elena through the smoke. That's how it works here. Everyone steals a little, everyone lies a little, but Dimitri knows everything, he sees everything, and when he decides you've crossed the line... She made a throat-cutting gesture. Elena filed that information away with everything else. 3 weeks in, Dimitri started taking her to more meetings. She became a fixture, the quiet girl in the corner with the notebook, recording everything, saying nothing. The men in the organization got used to her presence. Some, like Luca, treated her with cautious respect. Others, like Yuri, ignored her completely, and a few, like Ilya, watched her with barely concealed contempt. The American whore, she heard him mutter once, thinking she wasn't listening. Next, he'll be putting her in charge of operations. She told Dimitri about it that evening, during one of their late-night working sessions in his office. He looked up from his laptop, his expression unreadable. And what did you do? Nothing. Pretended I didn't hear. Good. Responding would give him power. Ignoring him takes it away. He returned to his screen. Besides, Ilya is a problem solving itself. He's been shorting payments to our suppliers, pocketing the difference. He thinks I don't notice because the amounts are small. How long have you known? 3 months. Why haven't you stopped him? Because I'm waiting to see how greedy he gets. Small theft is predictable. Useful, even. It keeps him comfortable, makes him think he's clever. But eventually, his greed will exceed his caution. That's when he becomes a liability. And then, Dimitri's smile was cold and sharp. Then Alexei has a conversation with him, and we find someone less ambitious to run the Queen's operations. Elena should have been horrified. Instead, she found herself analyzing it like a business problem. Ilya was an asset becoming a liability. The logical solution was replacement. When had she started thinking like this? You're adapting, Dimitri observed, somehow reading her thoughts. Faster than I expected. Is that good or bad? Depends on your perspective. From mine? Excellent. It means my investment is paying off. He closed his laptop. From yours? Probably concerning. You came here terrified and desperate. Now you're sitting in my office at midnight, discussing murder like it's a quarterly review. I'm not discussing murder, you are. Semantics. You're not arguing with me, not trying to stop me. That's complicity. He stood, moving to the window, his habitual position when thinking. You're becoming part of this world, Elena. One day you'll realize you can't go back to who you were before. I don't want to be part of this world. Then you shouldn't have offered yourself to save your brother. He looked back at her, his pale eyes reflecting the desk lamp. But you did. And now you're mine until the debt is paid or you die. Those are the only exits. The casual mention of her death should have terrified her. Instead, she felt oddly numb. 3 weeks of living in the heart of the Russian underworld had recalibrated her fear response. Death was just another possibility, like rain or traffic. How long until the debt is paid? She asked. At the rate I'm valuing your labor? 12 years. 12? Elena stood abruptly. That's insane. I'll be in my 30s. You offered yourself as collateral for $347,000. Your labor is worth approximately $29,000 annually, accounting for room and board. The math is simple. The math is designed to trap me. Yes. He didn't deny it, but it's still honest. I told you, debt is sacred. I won't simply forgive it because you're unhappy with the terms you agreed to. Elena wanted to scream, to throw something, to rage against the cage she'd locked herself into, but she'd learned enough about Dmitri to know that emotional displays didn't move him. Only logic worked. What if I make myself more valuable? She asked. If I prove I'm worth more than $29,000 a year, does the debt decrease faster? That got his attention. He turned from the window, something like interest flickering in his expression. Explain. You said I'm useful because I'm educated and desperate. But I'm also smart. Give me more responsibility, more complex work. If I can handle it, the value of my labor increases. The debt gets paid faster. And if you can't handle it, then you were right to value me at minimum wage. Dmitri studied her for a long moment, and Elena had the uncomfortable sensation of being x-rayed, every thought and motivation laid bare. Interesting, he finally said. You're either genuinely clever or cleverly suicidal. Can't I be both? His mouth twitched, almost a smile. Gala mentioned you've mastered the filing system, that you can track shipments faster than she can. Is this true? Yes. And the accounting? You understand how the money flows? Most of it. Some of the offshore structures are still confusing. I'll teach you. He moved back to his desk, opening a drawer and removing a file. Starting tomorrow, you take over the weekly reconciliation. Every Friday, you audit the previous week's income and expenses across all operations, discrepancies, shortfalls, overages. You document everything and report to me. Elena's pulse quickened. That was real responsibility, real access to the organization's financial core. If you succeed, Dmitri continued, I'll revalue your labor at $60,000 annually. The debt gets paid in 6 years instead of 12. And if I fail? Then you've wasted my time and proven yourself less valuable than I thought. I don't terminate your contract. That would be dishonorable. But you go back to basic filing and the 12-year timeline stands. It was a gamble, but wasn't everything in this world? I'll do it, Elena said. Good. He handed her the file. Start reading. Friday is in 3 days. Elena spent the next 72 hours living in spreadsheets and ledgers. Gala helped, walking her through the more complex transactions, explaining the shell companies and offshore accounts that made everything deliberately confusing. You're sure you want this? Gala asked on Thursday night, both of them hunched over Elena's laptop in the operations room. Because if you screw up, Dmitri will lose respect for you, and in this organization, respect is everything. I know. Do you? Because I've seen people try to rise too fast. They always fall harder. Elena met her eyes. I don't have a choice. 12 years in this house will destroy me. 6 years I might survive. Gala studied her, then nodded slowly. You're tougher than you look, Malishka. Okay, let me show you the trick to spotting skimming operations. By Friday morning, Elena had memorized more financial data than she'd learned in 4 years of college. Her eyes burned, her head ached, but she was ready. The weekly meeting happened in Dmitri's office at 9 a.m. The usual people attended: Alexei, Luka, Gala, Pavel from the weapons operation, and Ilya, looking bored and contemptuous. Gentlemen, Dmitri began, we have a new addition to our weekly review. Elena will be presenting the reconciliation going forward. Elena? All eyes turned to her. Ilya snorted. The waitress is doing accounting now? What's next? She negotiates with the Italians? She negotiates better than you, Ilya, Dmitri said mildly. At least she knows basic math. Please continue, Elena. Elena stood, positioning herself where she could see her notes but also maintain eye contact with the room. First rule of presentations: confidence sells as much as content. Last week's revenue across all operations was $2.4 million. Expenses totaled $1.1 million, leaving a net profit of $1.3 million. She pulled up a spreadsheet on the large monitor. Breaking this down by operation: weapons trafficking netted $400,000. Gambling operations brought in $600,000. Import-export logged $800,000, and real estate holdings generated $500,000 in rental and development income. She let that sit for a moment, then continued. However, I found several discrepancies. The Queen's Waste Management operation reported expenses of $90,000, but vendor invoices only total $67,000. That's a $23,000 gap with no documentation. Ilya shifted in his seat, his face darkening. Additionally, Elena continued, keeping her voice steady, 3 shipments from our Bulgarian weapons supplier show payment of $60,000 each, totaling $180,000, but our bank records show payments of $45,000 each, totaling only $135,000. That's a $45,000 discrepancy. Perhaps the accountant made errors, Ilya growled. Numbers get confused. Perhaps. But I checked 3 months of records. The same discrepancies appear consistently. Always in operations you manage, Ilya Maximov. Always in amounts small enough to avoid immediate notice. Cumulatively, you've diverted approximately $200,000 over the last quarter. The silence in the room was absolute. Ilya stood abruptly, his chair scraping. This is ridiculous! Some American bitch who's been here 3 weeks is accusing me. Sit down, Ilya. Dmitri's voice was quiet, lethally quiet. Vor, I would never... Sit down. Ilya sat. Dmitri looked at Elena. You're certain of these numbers? Yes, I can show you the documentation. Send it to my email. Full breakdown. He turned to Ilya, and Elena saw something terrifying in his expression, not anger, disappointment. 200,000, Ilya. I would have respected you more if you'd stolen $1 million. At least that would have taken courage. Vor, please, let me explain. You've explained enough by lying just now. If you'd admitted it, shown remorse, we might have found a solution, but you lied to my face, in front of witnesses. Dmitri stood. Alexei, take Ilya to the warehouse. We'll discuss his retirement package there. Ilya went pale. Retirement package was code. Everyone in the room knew it. Vor, please, I have a family. I can pay it back. I swear on my mother's grave. Your mother died 3 years ago, and you didn't attend the funeral because you were in Atlantic City gambling away your earnings. Don't invoke her now. Dmitri's voice was ice. You had chances, Ilya. Multiple chances. You chose greed. You chose deception. You chose to steal from the Brotherhood. Alexei hauled Ilya to his feet. The older man was crying now, begging, promising, making every plea that desperate men make when they realize death is coming. Dmitri watched him go, expression unchanged. When the door closed, he looked at Elena. Well done. Thorough, clear, damning. You'll handle all financial reviews going forward. Your labor is revalued at $80,000 annually. You said 60, Elena said, her voice shaking slightly. You exceeded expectations. I reward excellence. He dismissed the others with a gesture. Elena, stay. When they were alone, Dmitri poured 2 glasses of vodka, expensive, crystal clear. He handed one to her. Drink. She did. It burned going down, clean and harsh. You just killed a man, Dmitri said. Elena's hands started to shake. I just reported numbers. You provided the evidence that sealed his execution. Don't pretend otherwise. He drank his own vodka in one swallow. How do you feel? How did she feel? Terrified, guilty, but also satisfied. Ilya had called her a whore, had disrespected her, had tried to undermine her from day one, and now he was gone. I don't know, she admitted. That's an honest answer, better than false remorse or fake strength. He poured himself another measure. Ilya was weak, greedy. He would have continued stealing until he attracted law enforcement attention or got someone killed through his incompetence. You did the organization a service. I sent a man to his death. No, he sent himself to death the moment he stole from the Brotherhood. You simply revealed what was already true. Dmitri moved to his desk, setting down his glass. This is the world you live in now, Elena. Actions have consequences. Stealing has consequences, lying has consequences, even loyalty has consequences, usually good ones, but consequences nonetheless. And what are the consequences of what I just did? Respect, fear, power. From today forward, everyone in this organization knows you're not decoration. You're functional, valuable, dangerous. He looked at her directly. They'll treat you differently now. Some will respect it, others will resent it. All of them will remember that you brought down Ilya Maximov. Elena drained her vodka, letting the burn ground her. I think I need to lie down. Go. We'll have dinner brought to your room. He paused. And Elena, you did well. Genuinely well. Sleep knowing that. She left his office on unsteady legs, climbed to her room, and collapsed on her bed. She'd been in this house for 3 weeks. She'd just caused a man's death, and Dmitri Sokolov had called it excellence. Elena stared at the ceiling and wondered who she was becoming. Chapter 5. Evolution news of Ilya's retirement spread through the organization like wildfire. By Monday morning, everyone knew that the American girl had exposed him, and that Dmitri had rewarded her for it. The change in how people treated Elena was immediate and profound. Luca started calling her Miss Carter instead of the girl. Pavel nodded respectfully when they passed in the hall. Even Yuri, the perpetually silent enforcer, grunted something that might have been approval. Gala was more direct. You clever little bitch, she said, grinning. I didn't think you had it in you. Ilya's been skimming for years. Everyone knew, but no one had the balls to document it and present it to the vor. You've been here 3 weeks and you did what I wouldn't do in 3 years. Did Dmitri know before I showed him? Elena asked. Of course he knew. He knows everything. But he needed someone to confirm it officially, to make it a matter of public record, not private suspicion. Gala lit a cigarette. That way, when Ilya disappeared, no one could claim it was arbitrary. It was justice. That's how Dmitri operates. Everything has to follow the rules, even executions. The rules, the code, the strange honor that governed a dishonorable world. Elena was beginning to understand it, and that understanding terrified her. Her new responsibilities expanded rapidly. Beyond the weekly reconciliation, Dmitri assigned her to audit individual operations, review contracts, monitor shipments. She became his eyes on the financial side of the organization, catching discrepancies, identifying inefficiencies, suggesting improvements. She was good at it, disturbingly good. You have a mind for systems, Dmitri observed one evening, reviewing her latest report. You see patterns others miss. It's a rare talent. It's just pattern recognition, basic analysis. No, it's more than that. It's understanding human behavior through numbers. When someone steals, they leave tracks, not just in the ledgers, but in their patterns. You're learning to read those patterns. He was right. She could look at a series of transactions and know, almost instinctively, when something was wrong. The way expenses always increased on Fridays, the way certain shipments consistently came in underweight, the way people lied even when telling the truth would serve them better. I'm becoming one of you, she said quietly. Dmitri looked up from the report. Does that bother you? Yes. Good. The day it stops bothering you is the day you become dangerous. He set the report aside. You maintain your moral compass even as you work within an immoral system. That's valuable. It means you won't lose perspective. Is that what happened to you? You lost perspective? She expected anger. Instead, he considered the question seriously. I never had perspective to lose. I was born into this life. My grandfather was Vor. My father was Vor. I never had the choice you had. Everyone has choices. Do they? When I was 14, my father took me to an execution, a man who'd betrayed the organization. He made me hold the knife. Told me if I didn't kill this traitor, I wasn't his son. Dimitri's voice was eerily flat. I had a choice, technically. Kill a stranger or lose my family. What choice would you have made? Elena had no answer. I'm not asking for sympathy, Dimitri continued. I'm explaining context. You see me as a monster because you came from a normal world. But in my world, I'm a reformer. My grandfather ruled through fear and brutality. My father was worse. I've built something more stable, more rational. There's still violence. There will always be violence. But it's controlled, purposeful, not random cruelty. You're still killing people. Yes, people who break sacred oaths, people who threaten the structure that keeps hundreds of families safe, people who would hurt innocents if left alive. He leaned back. You think the system you came from is better? Where corporations destroy lives legally? Where politicians sell out their people for campaign donations? Where justice depends on how expensive your lawyer is? At least in my world, the rules are honest. Break them, and the consequences are immediate and certain. That's still just rationalization? Perhaps, but it's rationalization I can live with. He closed his laptop. You don't have to agree with me, Elena. You just have to do your job. Save your moral debates for after the debt is paid. If the debt was ever paid, 6 years at the new valuation felt both impossibly long and dangerously short. Long enough to change her completely, short enough that she might survive. A month after Ilya's execution, Dimitri brought Elena to her first major negotiation. The Koreans want to expand their operations in Flushing, he explained during the drive. Specifically, they want to run high-stakes gambling operations that would directly compete with our interests. We need to either negotiate a profit-sharing arrangement or shut them down. Why am I coming to this? Because you're going to analyze their offer in real time. They'll propose terms. You'll tell me if those terms are profitable or if they're trying to fuck us. The meeting took place in a private room at a restaurant in Flushing, the kind of place where every dish cost as much as Elena used to make in a week. 6 Korean men waited, led by someone introduced only as Mr. Park, 50s expensive watch, eyes that missed nothing. The conversation happened in English, both sides carefully polite, dancing around the real issue for 15 minutes before Mr. Park finally got to it. We propose a 70-30 split on gambling revenue. We handle operations, you provide protection and regulatory interference. Elena did the math in her head while Dimitri sipped his tea. 70-30 sounded reasonable on the surface, but she'd reviewed the Flushing gambling data. The Koreans would be pulling in an estimated $2 million monthly. 30% of that was $600,000, good money, but they'd also be cannibalizing existing Russian operations that currently generated $800,000 monthly. Net loss, $200,000 monthly. She caught Dimitri's eye and shook her head fractionally. An interesting proposal, Dimitri said smoothly. But it doesn't account for the loss to our existing operations. You're not expanding the market, you're dividing it. That makes you competitors, not partners. Mr. Park's expression never changed. Then what do you propose? 50-50 split. We provide locations, protection, and infrastructure. You provide personnel and expertise. We both benefit from expansion rather than competition. 50-50 is unacceptable. We're taking all the operational risk. And we're providing the political protection that keeps you from being raided every week. That's worth 20% at minimum. They negotiated for another hour, numbers flying, Elena keeping track of every proposal and counter-proposal. Finally, they settled on 60-40, Korean favor, with quarterly reviews to adjust based on actual performance. In the car afterward, Dimitri looked at her. Good instinct on the initial offer. They were lowballing. The numbers were designed to sound good, but weren't. They were counting on you not having current revenue data at hand. Which I didn't, but you did. Something like approval in his voice. You're starting to think like a Vor. I'm thinking like an accountant. In this world, they're the same thing. The weeks blurred together. Elena's role expanded from financial oversight to strategic planning. Dmitri brought her into more meetings, valued her analysis, listened to her suggestions. She wasn't his equal, would never be his equal, but she was becoming something more than a servant, an advisor, a tool, a weapon. The nights were the hardest. Alone in her small room, Elena would lie awake and wonder who she was becoming. She could feel the old Elena, the college student, the girl who worried about grades and boys and normal things, fading away, being replaced by someone harder, colder, more calculating, someone who could watch a man be led to his execution and sleep soundly that night, someone who negotiated criminal enterprises without flinching, someone who belonged in Dmitry Sokolov's world. 2 months into her new life, she had her first nightmare. Not about violence or death, but about Noah. He appeared in her dream, older, hardened, asking why she'd abandoned him, asking what happened to his sister, asking who this stranger wearing Elena's face was. She woke up gasping, tears streaming down her face. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dmitri. "Come to my office." It was 2 a.m. She pulled on a robe over her sleep clothes and climbed the stairs. Dmitri's office door was open, light spilling out. He sat at his desk, reading something on his computer, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. She'd never seen him so casually dressed. It made him look younger, almost human. "You screamed," he said without looking up. "The cameras have audio." Of course they did. Privacy was an illusion here. "Nightmare," Elena said. "About?" She almost lied, but what was the point? "My brother, what I'm becoming, whether I'll recognize myself when this is over." Dmitri finally looked at her, and something in his expression shifted, less predatory, more understanding. "Sit." She sat in one of the chairs facing his desk. He poured 2 glasses of vodka, slid one across to her. "The first year is hardest. You're caught between 2 worlds. The person you were and the person you're becoming. It creates dissonance, pain. Does it get easier? No, you just stop fighting it." He drank. "I can show you something, if you want." Elena nodded. Dmitri pulled up a video on his laptop, turned the screen toward her. Noah appeared, laughing with 2 other boys playing basketball in someone's driveway. He looked healthy, happy, more relaxed than Elena had seen him in years. "This was yesterday," Dmitri said. "My cousin sends weekly updates. Your brother is thriving. Good grades. Made the basketball team. Has friends. He talks about you sometimes, says you're working abroad, making good money, that you'll visit when you can." Elena's chest tightened. "He looks so normal." "Because he is, because you gave him that." Dmitri closed the laptop. "What you're becoming, it's a sacrifice, but it's not meaningless. Every day you're here, he's there, living the life your father's mistakes would have stolen from him. At the cost of my own life. At the cost of your innocence. There's a difference." He studied her. "You're stronger than you know, Elena. Most people break by now. You're adapting, surviving, becoming formidable." "I don't want to be formidable. I want to be normal." "You can never be normal again, but you can be free, eventually." He paused. 4 years at your current valuation. Maybe less if you continue exceeding expectations. 4 years. It felt like eternity and no time at all. "Why do you care?" Elena asked, "whether I break or not?" "Because broken tools are useless, and you're becoming too valuable to waste." But there was something else in his eyes, something almost concerned. Elena left his office more confused than comforted. Chapter 6. The Shift. 3 months in, everything changed. A rival organization, the Chechens, led by a man named Ramzan Kadyrov, made a move on Severny Codex territory. 3 of Dmitri's men were killed in a coordinated hit. A warehouse was burned. A message was sent. Back down or face war. Times Dmitri didn't back down. The house became a fortress overnight. More guards, more weapons, protocols that turned every exit and entrance into a checkpoint. Elena wasn't allowed to leave for any reason. "It's not safe," Dmitri told her curtly. "The Chechens know about you. They know you're valuable to me. That makes you a target." "I'm just an accountant." You're more than that now, and they know it. The war was swift and brutal. Attacks, counterattacks, bodies dropping on both sides. Elena tracked it all through reports and overheard conversations. Pavel was wounded but survived. Yuri killed 4 Chechens in a single night. Dmitri himself led several operations, coming back with blood on his clothes and ice in his eyes. Elena saw a different side of him during those weeks, not the careful businessman or the calculated negotiator, but the vor, the wolf, ruthless, merciless, efficient. It should have terrified her. Instead, she found herself fascinated. One night, Dmitri returned at 3 a.m., Alexei half carrying him. Elena was in the operations room, working late, and saw them stumble in. Blood soaked Dmitri's left side. "Get Irina," Alexei barked. "She's asleep. I'll help." Elena was moving before she could think about it. They got Dmitri upstairs to his private floor, into his bedroom, a space Elena had never seen, sparse, military neat, dominated by a massive bed and more weapons. "Knife wound," Alexei said. "Not deep, but needs stitching." "I can do it," Elena said. "I took an EMT certification course in college." Both men looked at her. "You?" Alexei said doubtfully. "Me. Go find Irina. Get medical supplies. I'll keep pressure on it." Alexei hesitated, then nodded and left. Elena grabbed towels from Dmitri's bathroom, pressed them against the wound. He hissed in pain but didn't cry out. "You should see the other guy," he said, his voice tight. "Is he dead?" "Very." "Then I'm not impressed. You got stabbed." A surprised laugh escaped him. "You're scolding me?" "Someone should. This is reckless even for you." "Ramzan needed to see I wasn't hiding. That I lead from the front. Ramzan needs to see you alive, not bleeding out in your bedroom." Irina arrived with supplies, sutures, antiseptic, bandages. She and Elena worked together, cleaning and closing the wound with efficient precision. Dmitri bore it stoically, barely flinching. When they finished, Irina looked at Elena with something resembling respect. "You have steady hands, Devochka." "Thank you. Stay with him tonight. Wake me if the bleeding starts again." She left, closing the door. Elena found herself alone with Dmitri Sokolov in his bedroom at 4 in the morning. The absurdity of it would have made her laugh if she weren't so exhausted. "You don't have to stay," Dmitri said. He was shirtless now, bandages bright white against his pale skin. Elena tried not to notice how well built he was beneath the expensive clothes. "I'm staying. Irina's orders." "Since when do you follow Irina's orders without question?" "Since you're injured and someone needs to keep you from doing something stupid." He smiled then, a real smile, rare and devastating. "You're becoming bold, Miss Carter." "You're becoming careless, Mr. Sokolov." They sat in silence for a while, Elena in a chair beside his bed, Dmitri propped against his pillows. Outside, Brighton Beach was dark and quiet, holding its breath. "Thank you," he said finally, "for the stitches." "You're welcome. Most people in your position would have let me bleed. Hoped I'd die. Hoped they'd go free." Elena considered lying, then didn't. "The thought crossed my mind, but I dismissed it." "Why?" "Because you're the only thing keeping Noah safe. If you die, whoever takes over might not honor the agreement. Better the devil I know." "Practical?" "I learned from the best." Another smile, softer this time. "You know, when you first walked into my club, terrified and desperate, I gave you 6 months before you broke. 3 months maximum before you tried to run. Disappointed? Intrigued?" He shifted, wincing slightly. "You're not what I expected, Elena Carter." "What did you expect?" "Someone weaker, someone I could mold and discard. Instead, you're..." He paused, choosing words carefully. "Resilient, intelligent, adaptable. You're becoming essential. That complicates things." "How?" "Because essential things are harder to let go." The words hung in the air between them, weighted with meanings Elena wasn't ready to examine. "The debt," she started, "will be honored. When it's paid, you're free. That was our agreement." But he didn't sound entirely certain. Elena should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt something more complicated. After 3 months, This brutal world had become familiar. Dmitri had become familiar. The idea of leaving felt almost wrong. She was definitely broken. Get some sleep, she said, standing. I'll be in the chair if you need anything. Elena. She paused at the door. You could have let me die tonight. I won't forget that you didn't. She left before she could say something foolish. Chapter 7. The Fall. The war with the Chechens ended 2 weeks later. Ramzan was found dead in his car, 3 bullets in his head, his organization fractured and leaderless. Dmitri never confirmed he ordered the hit, but everyone knew the Severny Codex had won. But victory came with costs: 6 men dead, dozens wounded, operations disrupted, money lost, and Dmitri had a scar on his side that would never fully fade. Life in the house returned to its careful routine, but something had shifted. Dmitri looked at Elena differently now. Not as property or a tool, but as something else, something more dangerous. And Elena looked back. It started small. Lingering glances, conversations that stretched longer than necessary, the way he found excuses to keep her in his office late into the night. She told herself it was nothing. Professional respect, mutual understanding. She was lying to herself. Gala noticed. Be careful, Malishka, she warned. I've seen this before. He's interested in you. And when the vor becomes interested in someone, it either ends in obsession or destruction. Sometimes both. There's nothing between us. Not yet, but there will be. Gala lit her cigarette. And when there is, everything changes. The rules stop applying. That's when people get hurt. Elena should have heeded the warning. She didn't. It happened on a cold February night, 4 months into her captivity. Elena was working late, auditing the previous week's operations. Dmitri entered the operations room at midnight, 2 glasses and a bottle of premium vodka in hand. Take a break, he said. You've been staring at that screen for 6 hours. I'm almost done. Elena, break. She saved her work and accepted the glass he offered. They sat in the quiet room, surrounded by monitors and files, drinking in companionable silence. 4 months, Dmitri said eventually. You've survived 4 months in this world. Thrived even. I'm impressed. Is that unusual? Extremely. Most people either break or betray within the first month. You've done neither. I'm a survivor. Always have been. I'm starting to understand that. He refilled both glasses. Can I ask you something personal? Can I refuse? No. Elena almost smiled. Then ask. Do you hate me? The question caught her off guard. She considered it seriously, examining her feelings with the same analytical precision she applied to financial data. No, she said finally. I should, but I don't. Why not? Because you've been honest. Brutal, but honest. You told me exactly what would happen, exactly what I was agreeing to. You've kept your word about Noah. You've protected me in your way, and you've... She paused, searching for the right words. You've treated me like a person, not property, a person with value and capability. You are property, technically. But you don't treat me like I am. That matters. Dmitri was quiet for a long moment, his pale eyes studying her in the dim light. You're dangerous, Elena Carter. How? Because you make me want things I can't have. Her pulse quickened. Like what? He set down his glass and stood, moving to where she sat. Slowly, giving her time to move away, he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered on her cheek. Like this, he said quietly. Elena knew she should pull away, knew this was crossing a line they couldn't uncross, knew it would complicate everything. She didn't move. Dmitri leaned down and kissed her. Soft at first, questioning. Then deeper when she responded, her hands coming up to grip his shirt, pulling him closer. It was reckless and stupid and inevitable. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dmitri rested his forehead against hers. This changes nothing, he said. The debt still stands. The rules still apply. I know, but I can't. He stopped, seeming to struggle with words. I can't stay away from you anymore. Then don't. They made it to his bedroom, barely. Clothes discarded in a trail up the stairs, hands desperate and searching. When they finally came together, it was fierce and hungry and almost angry, months of tension breaking like a dam. Afterward, Elena lay in Dimitri's bed, his arm around her, her head on his chest, and wondered what she'd just done. "You're thinking too loud," Dimitri murmured. "I just slept with the man who owns me. I think I'm entitled to some loud thinking. I don't own you. The organization does. Semantics. Important semantics." He tilted her face up to look at him. "What we just did, it doesn't change your status, doesn't change the debt, but it does change us." "Into what?" "I don't know yet, but whatever it is, it's real." His thumb traced her bottom lip. "I don't do this, Elena. I don't get involved. It's a weakness, a vulnerability. But with you couldn't help yourself?" "Something like that." They fell asleep tangled together, and for the first time since her father died, Elena felt something like peace. Chapter 8. The Queen. The next 3 months were a careful dance. Publicly, nothing changed. Elena maintained her role as financial advisor and analyst. Dimitri remained the vor, distant and professional. But privately, behind closed doors, they became something neither could fully define. Not quite lovers, not quite partners. Something in between. Gala knew, of course. "You're glowing, Malishka. It's disgusting." "I'm not glowing." "You are. And half the organization has noticed. They're taking bets on how long before the vor makes it official." "Makes what official?" "You. As his." Elena's stomach churned. "I already am his property, remember? That's different, and you know it. I'm talking about claiming you, publicly, as his woman." It shouldn't have sent a thrill through her, but it did. Dimitri never discussed the future, never made promises. But he was possessive in ways that both frightened and excited her. When other men looked at her too long, they found themselves reassigned. When a business associate made a crude comment about her appearance, Alexei broke his jaw. Messages sent without words. Elena was the vor's, and everyone knew it. The debt was now calculated at 3.5 years remaining. Elena had been in the house for 7 months, and she could barely remember her old life. College felt like a dream. Her apartment, her friends, her ordinary existence, all faded and distant. Noah was thriving in Portland. Dimitri showed her videos regularly now, without her asking. Her brother had grown taller, his voice deeper, his smile more confident. He had a girlfriend. He was talking about college. He was living the life she'd bought him with her freedom. "Do you regret it?" Dimitri asked one night, both of them in his bed, her back against his chest. "Saving Noah? Never." "Giving yourself to me?" Elena turned in his arms to face him. "I gave myself to the organization. What happened between us? That was different. That was choice." "Was it? You're still mine, still bound. Maybe, but this," she gestured between them. "This isn't about the debt anymore, is it?" Dimitri's expression was unreadable. "No, it's not." "Then what is it about?" "Obsession," he said quietly. "I'm obsessed with you, Elena, the way you think, the way you challenge me, the way you belong in this world but refuse to lose yourself to it." His hand cupped her face. "I can't let you go. Even when the debt is paid, I can't." It should have terrified her. Instead, Elena felt something click into place. "Then don't. What are you saying?" "I'm saying that 3.5 years from now, when the debt is paid and I could walk away, I don't think I will." She kissed him softly. "I think I'll stay, if you want me to." "If I want," Dimitri laughed, the sound almost desperate. "Elena, I would burn the city down if it meant keeping you." "That's unhealthy. Everything about us is unhealthy, but it's also the most real thing I've ever had." They made love then, slow and intense, and Elena felt the last pieces of her old self finally slip away. She wasn't a college student anymore. She wasn't a frightened girl trying to survive. She was something new, something forged in fire and blood and desperation. She was the woman who belonged beside the Wolf of Brighton Beach. Epilogue. The Dark Queen. 2 years later. Elena sat in what had once been Dimitri's office, reviewing contracts for a new shipping venture. She wore black, always black now, tailored and elegant. Her hair was longer, styled in a way that suggested both sophistication and danger. A thin gold chain around her neck, a gift from Dimitri, the only jewelry she wore. Gala entered without knocking. The Italians are here for the quarterly review. Send them in. 3 men filed in, the same ones who'd been meeting with Dimitri for years, but their eyes went to Elena now, showing respect and a healthy dose of fear. Gentlemen, Elena greeted them, let's discuss your territory expansions. The debt had been paid off 14 months ago. Elena could have left, should have left, she'd stayed, not as property, not as a servant, but as Dimitri's partner in every sense that mattered. She ran the financial operations, she negotiated deals, she made decisions that affected the entire organization. She was the Vor's queen, and everyone knew it. After the Italians left, Dimitri appeared in the doorway. He'd been away for 3 days handling a situation in Philadelphia. His eyes found her immediately, and something hot and possessive flared in them. Miss me? He asked. Desperately, Elena said dryly. The house was practically falling apart without you. Liar, you run this place better than I do. He crossed the room, pulling her to her feet, kissing her with months of pent-up want. Come home with me. This is home. You know what I mean. They walked upstairs together, his arm around her waist, and Elena thought about the terrified girl who'd begged for her brother's life 7 years ago. That girl was gone. Dead, replaced by someone harder, colder, more capable, someone who ruled the underworld beside the wolf, someone who'd chosen the darkness and made it hers. Noah had graduated college last month, business degree, honors. He'd hugged Elena at the ceremony, told her how proud he was of her success in international business consulting. He had no idea what she really was, what she'd become to save him. And Elena was fine with that. Do you ever regret it? Dimitri asked later, both of them tangled in bed. Becoming this? Every day, Elena admitted, but I'd do it again. For Noah, for you, for the life we've built. Even though you can never go back? Especially because I can never go back. Going back would mean pretending I'm someone I'm not anymore. She traced the scar on his side, the one she'd stitched. I'm not the girl I was. I'm the woman you made me. The woman I chose to become. My dark queen. Your dark queen, she agreed. And in the heart of Brighton Beach, in the fortress they'd built together, Elena Carter, now Elena Sokolova, though no official ceremony had ever taken place, closed her eyes and slept without nightmares. She'd traded her soul for her brother's freedom and found something like love in the darkness. The end.